This is an open letter to anybody involved in management, executive positions. Folks, you know how schools take uh, trips, learning trips around different museums or factories, production lines, farms. A lot of children are taken to a lot of different areas of where how a society functions, from a sewer service plant to where how the meat is processed and brought to the consumer. These are where children go on visits during the year, during their education period, and they go to the different places and learn about how their society around them is put together and is functioning. Now, class trips. And we all are familiar with that. It happens in the third world countries, it happens in the first world countries. These class trips are a common theme. And, it's a good thing. More should be done. That's how people, youngsters can choose their careers. If there are more class trips, they get introduced to more and more diverse environments, and then they probably have a better idea which kind of environment suits them best, what kind of work would suit them best. But the point is this, the point is not the children. Well, the point is the children. So these class trips help them become who they're supposed to become. But the same thing can be said about the international people of nations. What you have drawn lines on the map and you say this is mine, that is yours, and this is the dividing line. These nations that you have put together, they came up with a genius idea. Let's put a line put a line where line was not, and now let's fight over it. Amazing. The idea is that let's draw a line where none existed. Not naturally doesn't exist any lines, but we have to determine a line, and now we have to fight over it. Okay, let's pass over this for a second. These lines that you have drawn, you have created nations. Okay, in order for you to be more involved within your planet, the sole solution is for your citizens to easily travel back and forth over these borders. Easily travel and be encouraged to travel. When you encourage your citizens to travel, now whether you have to at the beginning you have to force it, fine. I would do it as a mandatory national service. 2 years of traveling. You, my brother, you, my sister, you owe 2 years of traveling to Uncle Sam. 2 years of living somewhere else, not on Uncle Sam. And that would be the service. And other countries, 2 years, if any country should send as many tourists as they can afford. This kind of young tourists, as many as any country can afford. This to bring about peace on earth. The only solution is you guys start traveling and enforce traveling. 2 years of young people's life should be spent traveling. Mormons have figured this out some time ago. It's a logical thing to do to a youngster to show him the shit and then have him to come to some sort of understanding with the shit. You see, you get the youngster gets to live somewhere beside his homeland for 2 years. 2 years, right out of high school. If the country can afford that, which the country can, many countries have standing armies of the same number of youngsters, and those standing armies are basically paid to walk around in groups and sit down and shut up and learn how to shoot. Well, why not, instead of making so many soldiers and having so many soldiers on the standby, why not have this many tourists on the job, talking and learning and teaching and learning and teaching and forming some sort of a bond with the fucking locals, so the locals wouldn't act up and he doesn't have to beat the crap out of the local. You see what I'm saying? If you can create stability by friendship, why try to destabilize it by animosity? Well, if you start traveling, having some kind of full contact with the local people of anywhere in the world, eventually you're going to affect them. I mean, the British spent 100 years sleeping in the same bed with the Indians. Well, Indians picked up a few things from the British, and the British picked up a few things from the Indians. It was not mutually satisfactory. It was not mutually exclusive. It was not mutually, profitable. It was much more profitable for the pink skin than it was for the brown skin. But nevertheless, this contamination leaves a mark, and that's a good mark. It's a mark of liberalism. It's a mark of let's move on. It's a thing for itself, but it is, I think, has created more variety. It is better than before, because before they were not so similar as they are. But again, we see that similarity ends there, and what works in democracy for Britain doesn't work in democracy for India. You see how India was shit and still shit. It's just not there. It's not there. That's a different story, folks. Different story. So these incompatibilities have to be experienced by your young public at a very early age. If you can pay small fee, that's a soldier's pay, to every youngster coming out of high school, send them for 2 years to live in Chad, Angola, China, India. 2 years, luck of the draw, have the youngster go live and promote your philosophy, the philosophy of individualism, the philosophy of democracy, whatever, the philosophy of Mormons. Leave it up to them. Whatever they want to teach, go ahead, teach. We do not condone or support, or not condone or not support. We don't have no position regarding whatever you do over there, as long as it's legal. Do whatever is legal, but rub shoulders with the locals. That's what Uncle Sam wants, because as an empire, if you want to be a good empire, A good empire comes from when the subjects of the empire have good communication lines with each other. I mean, empires can work, have worked in the past, but it's a very delicate operation running an empire. And boom boom doesn't work. Boom boom really doesn't work. Boom boom is enforcing. Why do you need to be enforcing if you can make love? This is my point. My pink skin friends, the political leaders of the pink skin lands, why not send more tourists? I mean, what is this idea of that we can enforce a better way of life on them? Why not just mingle with them? Eventually they will fucking pick it up. Just mingle with them. Send more of your people to their land and take more of their people in your land on, temporary basis. Now, if they find any connection to the land, okay, fine. They can overstay, legally overstay their temporary status, become permanent. But the point is this: if you can intermingle more, and you can easily intermingle if you put the guns down a little, but at least put the guns on the table. don't hold the guns in your hands. Put the guns on the table. Now, go to each other's house and say hi. How you doing? I'm here to say hi. And as long as it's mutual, and as long as it's not overwhelming, and as long as the guest country is okay with it, which everybody is okay with. I mean, while you still have the dollar as the reserve world currency, why not have the citizens deliver this dollar to those shitholes? And meanwhile, while they're there, take a look around and see how bad things can be. And when they return, first of all, they are much more worldly people. You can't put a person in a in a shithole and not have him be worldly. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So you want worldly citizens, people who have seen a lot of shit. You want those people as your citizens, because people who have seen a lot of shit don't lose their mind with a little shit. You see what I'm saying? The people who have gone through a lot of shit, are not really upset with a little shit. And that is this kind of citizens that you want. So the most important thing that these youngsters that you draft, pull in, and give them one job: go, look, learn, teach, understand. I mean, you will get, you will get very solid citizens back. If for 2 years out of high school, you send them 2 years overseas, out of your jurisdiction, whatever jurisdiction that he or she has been growing up on, you pull them out for 2 years, you put them under another jurisdiction. Just tell them, hey, mind your business, don't do anything illegal, or else you're going to, they're going to have their punishment, whatever the local punishment is, you get it too. So, mind your business. The whole idea, it clinches the butt. And what happens is that clenching of the butt in a totally unfamiliar environment gives them a better perspective in life. Not so gun-ho anymore. More, open to at least take the other side of a conversation as well as their own side. You see what I'm saying? You will get that if you have a worldly citizens. And this comes by if at first you might have to take some of the military budget out and give it to this, Secretary of Tourism, Ministry of Tourism, National Tourism, Secretary of National Tourism. Another seat in the cabinet, but I think it's the most important seat. I mean, you can throw out the CIA, you can throw out, half the military, you can throw out half the, NSA, you can get rid of half of them, and, literally, if you have at any given time 10,000, Uncle Sam citizens living in Chad, it's for example 5,000 living in Chad at any given time, because once the 2-year stint ends, they come back and there is another 2-year stint goes in. So at any given time you have this network of people on the ground, not with any malicious purposes, just a matter of this is a part of what I like to call Earth, this piece of land too, and since we are trying to run this thing as an empire, we're going to have to have a lot of exchange of people with different parts of the empire. In fact, more exchange of people into worse areas, sort of like wherever we have less understanding with, we send more tourists, because we want to understand what is it that we don't understand. We want to understand what is it that we don't understand, so we pay our youngsters to go find out what the fuck is it that we don't understand. Youngsters, 18, 20. They probably, before coming, eventually they will be given like a 3-month introduction into, hey, you're going here, this is it, maybe a 1-month introduction, and then send them over. And but when they go, they get a stipend and you don't ask any questions. Here's your stipend, come once a month, collect it. So, at least we see your face. If we don't see your face, then maybe we start looking for you if you don't come in for your monthly stipend. Something like that. Something to that effect. And so loose that, people can, live and learn and live and learn. Maybe, then, a lot can come out of it. Much more than you think. Much more than you think. It is what it is. They used to say there's only 2 ways you can learn. Reading and traveling. And it's still true. YouTube is great, but reading and traveling, that's still true. And let's assume that the first 18 years your students have read well. Let's give them 2 years of traveling, and hopefully they learn a lot more in that 2 years, I believe, that they learn in those 18 years. Why not? if you want better citizens, and I can assure you within 10 years of implementing this, you won't have any more wars. You won't have to worry about any war anywhere. Period. Choose a secretary of tourism. Choose a secretary of tourism. Pick a secretary of tourism. Allow a secretary of tourism to exist, and take some of the defense funds and give it to secretary of tourism. If we're gonna blow them up, let's at least, pick up the last bits of information that we can get from them as, earthly civilization. I'm sure there's still some things that we can take out. There are a lot of information culturally, so let's send our people over there to collect a lot of this, everyday information that we at least want to preserve, because apparently we don't want to preserve lesser cultures. Those who have not been able to come up with more sophisticated weapons than us, they're worth less, so we're going to vaporize them. Because we can. Since we are willing to do that, I mean, why not send some tourists over there to pick up some of the local culture, and bring it back out before we vaporize them. It's sort of like as an Earth history, you want to keep some of those details, and by going around and vaporizing Fallujah, you're destroying a lot of the local shit, the local details of cultures and shitty societies and shitty cultures. Those details are eliminated. Some say it's better that it's eliminated. Well, I'm not gonna argue against that, but do we want to, before vaporizing it, do you want to go in as a tourist and collect some details of the culture before they're vaporized? This is what I'm saying. Okay, vaporize them at a later date, but let's get to know them. Let's get to know them before we vaporize them. And how do you get to know them? Is with tourists. Just send in tourists. 18 to 12, 2 years of every young man and woman owns 2 years of their life to Uncle Sam, which should be brought back. You know how you create unity in a society? When you actually put them in, force them to live near each other at a young age. School doesn't do that because schools are area dependent, and rich folks go to a rich school and poor folks go to a poor school, and that's just how it is, because that's how taxes work. Local taxes collected for paying for the local school becomes very nice. Local taxes come up to shit in the local area, the school becomes shitty. So that is not where the rich and the poor meet in Western capitalist societies. The rich and poor don't meet in school at a very young age, and they certainly don't want to meet later on in life. The rich and the poor, they go in separate areas of town, separate traditions and separate. So the only time you can have your citizens, the rich and the poor, mix and meet is if it's a forced draft. Young men and women are pulled from the society at the age between 18 and 20, and they're put together. Now, the tradition used to be they were put together in a military kind of military formation, well, there is no need for that. They're coming up with squadrons of robots ruling the airs. The robot drones ruling the air at any given time. Some of them, can just vaporize you, and it wouldn't be surprising no longer, apparently. Holy shit. So the point is this, folks: the technology is there, and it has been there for some time, that we all can vaporize each other. That technology, we solve it, I guess, with automatic machine guns. We solve that problem. So we can really do a lot of damage to each other on Earth. And eventually one is going to be smashed to smithereens, and one is going to be left standing. And you don't have to guess far. Whoever has got more of the brains of the world, everybody can attract a lot of, because money can attract more money, and money can attract more brains, and more brains create more brilliant ideas. So the only way, folks, the only way for the Western democracies to prevent any wars, you want to prevent any wars, start Ministry of Tourism tomorrow. Say, hey, we need a Ministry of Tourism. I'm gonna bring back the draft, and I'm going to have people between the ages of 18 and 20 from the heart of the empire. They have to spend 2 years overseas, outside of the empire, to wherever, luck of the draw. And the point of this is that, and the worst places, that it seems we have the most misunderstanding, we're gonna send more people, more youngsters, in order to get a better understanding. As tourists, bring your beach umbrella. That's it. The beach umbrella from you, and a stipend per monthly check from Uncle Sam, equivalent to a soldier's check. To live on this money over there. Have a nice day. That's it. The first thing you do by doing this, you bring your own people together, because you create an environment that the rich and the poor, a rich guy and a poor guy meeting in some kind of situation in Chad. Both Americans, both apparently from the same city, but apparently one went to a rich school, school in the city, and one went to a poor school in the city. But being in a third country and only two Americans, they're going to become very good friends. And eventually this friendship will lead to a point that later on in life, in some veterans club, they still have an understanding of what is going on, can get an understanding what is going on in the other guy's world. What is going on in the other guy's world? And well, you can see that the most recent presidents have all been draft dodgers. Well, I mean, if you can dodge it seemed like a good idea, not having to rub shoulders with lesser people than you think. And, rubbing shoulders with lesser people, you would think it's just, it's 2 years of misery. But it does help people later on in life to be able to put themselves in the other shoes, because they actually were under the same roof with the other shoes for 2 years. That's what the military draft brings. But even the tourist draft, this will become, they probably in the host country, they probably meet. Because in the host country they are from the motherland, they meet, they will have some kind of connection. If they hit it off, then it will be a very good way of people of the society to understand each other later on in life. The poor understanding what's going on with the rich, and rich actually, meeting in some veteran organization, parties later on in life. But the point is this, that's even better. At the current time, you want payback next year. If you want payback next year, if you start the Ministry of Tourism this year and send 10,000 of just graduates of 18 years of education, graduated from high school, you're drafted, here is your ticket, and here is your first month's stipend. Have a nice day. And off to Chad. I think you will get the payback for this action next year. In one of those 2-week allowed vacation return ticket for 2 weeks and then go back. Or you will get it within a year. You will get if you bring such a draft in tomorrow, within a year you will see a noticeable difference in the society. You will see a very noticeable difference in the society if you start tomorrow and send recent graduates out of high school. You offer them a 2-year visa to Chad, to Uganda, to Saudi Arabia, to India, to China, to Tibet, to Iran, to Iraq, to everywhere. And if you feel there is somewhere something doesn't feel right, send them more with their approval. They know how much they can handle, how much tourists they can handle on more permanent basis. If they're not uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable with it, starting with 2-year visas. Let's do it with a 6 months visa. Are they comfortable with that? No, 3 months visa. You have to start. If you have a misunderstanding with wherever party on this earth, my pink skin friends, my pink skin leaders, wherever you have more misunderstanding, you have to send in more people. Not in the form of soldiers, but in the form of tourists. And prepare yourself. You will lose a few, but you call them, martyrs of peace, martyrs of friendship, whatever you want to call them. To get away with it, you will have some casualties at the beginning because they don't understand you. They don't understand what you're trying to do. But it's a much better way of, eventually once these people spend money in the local areas, eventually everybody becomes friends. So you don't have to actually have the military deliver the pallets of dollars to Iraqi central bank. Or you don't have to bring pallets of dollars to distribute between the local warlords in Iraq. You don't have to do that. You can give that dollars to tourists, American citizen tourists, to go and spend it in Iraq while Saddam was still there. Once all this money was coming from Uncle Sam, Saddam would have kissed your ass. It's Ibn Saddam. It's not, would have kissed your ass. But he was under sanctions for 15 years, 20 years. Why? Because he's not listening. Okay, send your tourists there. Their people will listen. Send tourists, send love. Send Uncle Sam's love with these dollars that your tourists, your young tourists are spending there and having a good time and learning and teaching individualism, teaching democracy, teaching capitalism, and learning others exist too. They're happy in their little shithole. They don't want their little shithole to become a big shithole. They prefer the little shithole. But the point is this, Uncle Sam. My pink skin friends, my pink skin leaders, you want good citizens for yourself later on in life, and you want, love from these shitholes, send them tourists. Start this tourist enterprise. It will become one day more important than the army. I can assure you, and I'm sure that real generals would be happy to run it for you, run this, tourism business. Retired generals, please start this. You have the mindset of organizational skills that the army teaches its generals. Well, please do the tourism. Start the tourism ministry and bring the retired generals from the army to run it. And no hanky-panky. You can't actually have hanky-panky, because if you even tell the whole country that these guys are going to be 18 to 20 and we are going to pay their stipend to live in your place for 6 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years. Our plan is to have them live in your country for 2 years. Are you uncomfortable with 2 years, Mr. North Korea? Okay, how about 3 months? You're comfortable with 3 months? We want our people, but we take some of your people. We want to have our people and your people. We give this money to our people to come and spend it in your place. Your place is going to, get money, right? I'm sure even Kim Jong-un is in favor of that. I'm sure they're in favor of it. Well, yeah, your people come here, a small number of them, to spend money. Yes, we're very good. And that's it. At the beginning, you're going to have a lot of misunderstanding with its shitholes. But eventually, tell your people to mind their business. That's it. Tell them understand the local laws before going there. Show them the local laws. Have that 1 month of preparation. Part of that preparation would be, this is the local laws, my folks, my friends. This is the local laws for the country that you have been, chosen. Just, luck of the draw. And you will get really good citizens back. You will get very appreciative citizens back. And the local, and with some of them may stay after 2 years. They develop, started businesses or whatever local roots they have been able to put down. They may actually not come back, some of them. And that's even better. You have permanent citizens there who actually, this bond prevents any of these shitholes from, getting blown up because of the bonds created. And there would be less misunderstanding with any of these shitholes because they feel safe. Because they feel the bonds are making them feel more safe. You see what I'm saying? It works both ways. If they do understand, they do see that you mean well, Uncle Sam, and your tourists are just tourists, and they're 18 to 20, of age, and they've been given a monthly stipend to just go live there, and you welcome some of their people as little as they want to start with. Maybe they're comfortable with starting with 100. If you can send us 100 tourists per month, if even they're comfortable with that, start with that. If they want to send people back, fine, to you. If they don't, they don't. Whatever they're comfortable with, but this people-to-people contact must be started to avoid any wars. If you really want to avoid wars, if the objective here on Earth is to keep it as peaceful as we can, you have to have your people mix very well. There is a story that true, apparently, from it has been told from many sources, that at a point in the World War I, there was trenches of lines of Christians shooting at each other in, somewhere between France and Germany, I guess, somewhere there. And apparently these Christians had believed that on the same night that their saviors was born, and apparently they had the same idea, and they started singing the traditional songs which also share the same rhythm from both sides, and eventually they got up and started, sharing cigarettes and not shooting at each other, from both the German line and the British and the French line. And the British always are the problem. British. Anyway, they started singing and dancing and eventually playing football during the Christmas of a year that we were fighting in a front line somewhere. And this actually made it, and the result was, when they were separated, the morning after, everybody ended up in their own camp. They didn't want to shoot at each other. They didn't want to shoot at each other. They didn't want to kill each other until, after like a month or so, that they didn't shoot at each other. Or if they did shoot at each other, they would shoot, into the trees on purpose. And this is what it shows. When you have contact with people, you don't want to shoot at them. You only are willing to shoot something that you don't know, you don't care, you don't understand. If you truly want to, my pink-skinned friends, if you truly want to stop the shit on Earth, have peace for thousands of years, you have to start the tourism international, international tourism draft. For the good of Uncle Sam, for the good of France, for the good of Germany, for the good of the British, for the good of the Spanish, for the good of everybody, the Russian, the Chinese, anybody who wants to participate in this program, they can. If not, we want to send you tourists. You don't want money from our tourists? What number are you comfortable with? We can start with 100 tourists. Can we send you 100 tourists? Our youngsters want to come over there and live, and we pay a stipend, and they will spend this money with you. This kind of tourism, nobody will say no. Even the North Koreans will. Once the money starts coming in and they actually see there is no hanky-panky going on, they will allow more to come in. And problem solved. You don't have to worry about people you just had lunch with, unless they're gangsters. And nobody's gangster Uncle Sam is the biggest gangster, and nobody can pull the wool over Uncle Sam's eye. So it's just, let's put it this way, my imperialist friends, it will keep the empire safe if you can, and benevolent. It will keep the empire safe and benevolent, the kind of benevolence that a lot of these shitholes prefer from the central command. A lot of benevolence. You see what I'm saying? That's what they expect. A benevolent empire, a good empire, a white empire. That's why I call you pink skin, and the right is always right. A good empire. That's the problem with, we associate our subconsciously white with right. The right way to go, the light is white, the light is light. So our preference in skin texture may come from that. It's just, but that's why we don't have a white skin, we have pink skin. But the point is this: by starting this kind of draft, you can create more. You can bring together your own rich and poor to have close contact overseas, as tourists, as whatever. Maybe they both chose to go study something over there for those 2 years in some kind of university or whatever. Maybe they started something and they became classmates. So now there is a rich guy and a poor guy meeting in the same class, learning about, I don't know, biology from a Vietnamese instructor in Hanoi. It's that kind of, your rich and your poor come together, they form some kind of a long life lasting relationships, which is healthy for a society. And relativism comes into play when the rich are forced to spend quality time with the poor, who just happen to be poor, and the poor having to spend some quality time with the rich kids. They get a better feel for life, and nobody says they should start as enemies. They don't start as enemies. They start as two American classmates sitting in Thailand learning about chemistry, learning about market economy. But the point is that internationalism, the point is that bringing your citizen a very different perspective, giving your citizen a very different perspective in life for 2 years, then bring him back, then allow him to come back. You will see its effects within a year, and they're all going to be positive, all positive. Again, some issues may rise, but nothing comparable to the good that it will do. Nothing comparable. And I'm sure your generals would love to, some of them, come out of retirement and run that. This tourism department at the lower levels, or mid-management or high management, who cares? Give one of your retired generals the secretary of tourism, of this kind of drafted tourism. I'm sure he'd love to have it. Because your generals know the price of war. Your politicians don't know the price of war, because your politicians, happen to, be running a baseball team until last month, and this month is the chief executive. So, a lot of generals are, the generals want to avoid war as much as possible. This is true for all generals of all armies. Who the fuck wants to send, their people they see every day around them, people they meet, they see every day, who wants to send other people to die or have a risk of death or have a risk of ailments? Nobody does that. So the generals feel the weight of that. The politicians don't. Politicians, unfortunately, because politicians, unless those politicians are lifelong politicians, a lot of them feel the weight of the responsibility of caring for the whole thing, keeping everything from falling apart. Very old politicians know the value of that, but the guy who was a real estate guy last month, doesn't know the value of the decisions that he makes. Doesn't know the value of the, So here's the thing. You want people to know the value of the decisions they make. Send them to shed holes. Send them to shed holes. Live for 2 years. Get a taste of shit. Once you get a taste of shit in your mouth, you will never forget it until you live. The taste of a shithole. It makes citizens much more appreciative and much more cooperative to keep their own place from falling into shit. And, it gives good perspective to people.